So I've just been live for about 45 minutes talking about Manchester United Football Club, and honestly, I feel just as gutted now as I did 45 minutes ago. I think tonight is genuinely a horrendous result, considering how strong the team was that we fielded at Selhurst Park. I think that result is really, really underwhelming. So let's talk about tonight's performance. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the good, because Christian Eriksen tonight was genuinely brilliant. I think tonight we saw the performance that really encompasses him as a player. We saw every aspect of his game being displayed fully, especially in that first half. You could argue that there was a massive drop-off in the second half, but in the first half, he couldn't put a foot wrong. I mean, even defensively, he was brilliant. There was a moment in the game where he really showed his recovery pace, something we haven't seen in the 6 months that he has been at Manchester United so far. He tracked back so well and recovered an attack from Crystal Palace that really could have ended up in a goal. He single-handedly saved Manchester United from conceding at one end on the pitch and then went up the other end and got an assist. A delightful goal from Bruno Fernandes, but a genuinely magnificent assist by Christian Eriksen. The vision and just the awareness to see the right pass and pick out that pass and have the technical ability to execute is just genuinely brilliant. So Christian Eriksen was great tonight. Another player who I thought was good tonight was David De Gea. And David De Gea is a bit of a polarizing figure in the Manchester United fan base, because we all know that he isn't good enough long term. We all know that his distribution, his ability to command his area, and his one-on-one keeping is not at the level that you would want of a modern goalkeeper in the Erik ten Hag system. But for the time being, I think he's been all right. I think he's been all right, and I think he has improved in all of those areas this season. On top of being a magnificent shot stopper, I think David De Gea's distribution, his ability to command his area, as well as his just general sweeper keeping ability and just rushing off of his line, it's improved this season. Is it at the level that we want going forward under the Erik ten Hag era? Probably not. Probably not, but it has improved, and I'm just giving credit where credit is due. On top of that, he made 2 genuinely world-class saves today that could have easily changed the complexion of the game had he not been on it. So David De Gea is one of those players who I think is just buying himself a little bit of extra time, and I think when I look at that Manchester United team, there are definitely a lot of players I would sell before David De Gea. That's all I'm saying, especially after tonight's performance. But let's move on. Let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about Bruno Fernandes, because he scored a brilliant goal. And I think this is where the negatives start for me, because yes, he took the goal pretty well. And yes, Bruno Fernandes is a player who I think is definitely one of our most productive players going forward, but he was so wasteful in the second half. And I think the best analogy I can use to describe Bruno Fernandes is people at casinos. Bruno doesn't know when to leave the casino. He wins a bunch of money, and instead of leaving the casino and taking the profits, he continues to gamble away the winnings. And eventually, he ends up in a much worse position than he was when he was winning. And that's Bruno Fernandes in a nutshell. Like, you played so well in the first half, but in the second half, there's no game management. There's no ability to say, you know what, let's slow the game down. Let's be methodical. Let's play into Crystal Palace's plan here, because Crystal Palace obviously came out to play football in the second half. In the first half, they were a lot more pragmatic because the game was still at 0-0. Suddenly, they're 1-0 down at halftime. Now they've got to go for it. Under the floodlights at Selhurst Park, a cold, wet night at Selhurst Park, they've got to go for it. And they did go for it. And that should have played into our hands. That should have been an opportunity for us to say, okay, now we can actually sit back and hit them on the break. Now we can actually sit back and really take control of this game. And we didn't. And that's in part due to Bruno Fernandes being very sloppy on the ball in all areas of the pitch, in the middle of the park and in the final third. So as much as I love Bruno, and those of you who are long-time viewers of the channel know that Bruno is one of my favorite players of the club. Behind Rafael Varane, he's my favorite, right? So Varane is first, Bruno second. I love Bruno Fernandes, but I cannot defend that second half performance. It was just not good enough. The one credit I will give Bruno Fernandes is that he seems to be really owning the captain's armband and becoming more of a leader. He seems to be very good at dictating the play and telling other people what they should be doing and making sure that people are not falling into the same bad habits, which is what a leader should do. Always constantly telling people what they need to do to improve. Don't do this. Don't make this run. Instead, do this. Remember what the manager told you. Blah, blah, blah. That's really good to see from Bruno Fernandes. You can tell that he is the guy who's pulling the strings in terms of leadership in that team. That's the one positive thing I've seen from him this season that I cannot fault him on. Some people see it as petulance. Some people see it as negativity and whining. But I see it as passion. I see it as being a leader. I see it as everything I would want the Manchester United captain to be. That's just a personal opinion of mine. Anthony, he wasn't great tonight either. And he's another player who's coming under a lot of heavy scrutiny at the moment. And I think the one positive thing about Antony tonight, which was pointed out to me by somebody on a live stream, it was Mark Briggs who said something along the lines of he used his pace really well, and he was really, really effective in terms of tracking back and defending from the front. And on top of that, he worked really hard going forward. And those three things are spot on. There were so many moments in the game where Antony was driving with the ball, using his pace, using his athleticism to get the better of the Crystal Palace fullbacks. No problem with that. And in terms of hard work, both defensively and going forward, those key attributes are so important, and they're so overlooked by the modern football fan. The modern football fan does not appreciate hard work. The modern football fan is all about technical ability. The modern football fan is all about the pretty footballers who look aesthetically pleasing on the eye. But the modern football fan doesn't understand the value of hard work. And the modern football fan doesn't understand that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard every single day of the week. That is just a fact. If talent doesn't work hard, hard work is beating it every single day of the week. And Antony is a symbol of that. But he's very one-dimensional. Very one-dimensional, and he needs to become a bit more diverse. He needs to add a lot more tools to his arsenal, not just in terms of being one-footed, because we all know that he's extremely left-footed, but just in terms of how he tries to go past plays. He's not direct enough, in my opinion, and even when he is being direct, it's very predictable. It's very, very predictable. The runs he makes is almost identical pretty much every game, and it's getting pretty frustrating and annoying. And I'm not somebody who's criticized Antony because I've had unrealistic standards on him based on his price tag. I knew that we weren't getting a player who was the finished article. I know that Antony is a long-term signing and very much a player that we know what he can become and we know where he's at, and we're willing to give him the patience to develop. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean he's immune from criticism. So for me, Antony was terrible tonight. Another player who really struggled was Marcus Rashford. Probably his worst performance, not probably, certainly his worst performance of the season. He was atrocious tonight. Well, actually, atrocious is a bit of an overstatement. He was below average tonight. He was below par. I think that's a more accurate way of putting it, because Rashford tonight was just extremely selfish. His decision-making was not great at all. And yeah, man, I don't think I can be too mad at Rashford because he's been our talisman the whole season. So to expect him to have a perfect game week in, week out is a little bit much, and it's a little bit idiotic. Like, he was bound to fall off at some point. But at the same time, it doesn't mean it's not frustrating, especially under the circumstances, considering we've just dropped points to Crystal Palace. It's disappointing that this is the game he decided not to turn up in. Apart from that, I don't really have much else to say about tonight's performance. I thought what really let us down was the final third. I mean, Weghorst's performance tonight, god damn, that was underwhelming. A lot of people said Weghorst played well tonight. A lot of people said Weghorst linked up the play. A lot of people pointed out the fact that he drew players out of position for the first goal, and just his off-ball movement in general was really troublesome for Crystal Palace. And maybe those things are all true. In fact, not maybe, they definitely are true. Those are all things Weghorst definitely did well tonight. But on the ball, I just didn't see enough. For me, personally, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I wasn't a huge fan of this Weghorst signing, and I made a video explaining why I think that this Weghorst signing was slightly desperate. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and not acknowledge anything that he doesn't do right. So I will acknowledge those things I just mentioned that he did right, but for me, his overall game, ignoring his off-ball movement, wasn't particularly great. And somebody made a comment in the live stream I was doing, basically saying that he plays in slow motion, and I laughed because that's the best description. That's how I feel watching Weghorst. He's not particularly quick. He's not particularly agile. And yes, there were extenuating circumstances. We didn't actually create the chances you would want for a striker like Weghorst, but still, like those excuses don't apply with Martial. They never applied with Ronaldo. They never applied with Cavani. So they're not going to apply with Weghorst, right? Like when Ronaldo was playing badly, I never once blamed the fact that the team wasn't creating chances. I always said that Ronaldo needs to take responsibility. Same with Cavani. Same with Martial. Same with Falcao. Same with Lukaku. Same with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, right? Whenever those players were having bad games, I always said, yes, there's extenuating circumstances, but they still have to take responsibility for the moments when they were involved in the game and they had opportunities to impact the game positively. Same with Weghorst. You know, he had a header today, which he didn't really take very well from a good cross from Luke Shaw. That was one chance that we genuinely created for him, and he just couldn't find the target. So for me, very underwhelming signing so far. Obviously, it's just the first game, so I'm not writing him off. I'm not calling him a flop. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm just saying it wasn't the best of debuts. Hopefully, he improves dramatically over the next few weeks because, I mean, we only have him for 6 months, so he doesn't have a long time to really change people's opinions. Anyways, it's been your boy TripleM. Pretty disappointed with the result. Casemiro obviously getting a yellow card as well is just a complete calamity. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to beat Arsenal now. Leave a like in the video. Don't forget to comment and subscribe if you're new. Peace.